Tonight, more evacuations. Residents of One Island Lake told to leave. Evacuation alert. Wildfires creep closer to the Fort Nelson First Nation and getting worse. The BC Wildfire Service institutes a campfire ban. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with more evacuation orders being issued for the Cascatna River wildfire. People living in the community of One Island Lake and the surrounding area being told last night to leave immediately. 2 separate evacuation orders and 1 alert issued Tuesday night. A total of 57 properties were evacuated. 5 people have defied the latest order. The BC Wildfire Service says in the coming days the weather conditions will become dangerous. There has been significant growth since Monday. The fire is currently listed at just over 6,500 hectares in size, and it's still burning about 5 kilometers from Kelly Lake. There's been a significant growth of fire behavior on the north and south flanks over the last day. 105 firefighters are now on the ground, supported by 11 helicopters in the air. 40 structure personnel are working to save buildings. The Peace River Regional District saying today, so far, no structures have been burned. There's a lot of oil and gas infrastructure, however, in the area. In total, 110 properties are now under an evacuation order. 11 more are under an evacuation alert. Evacuees are being asked to register for support services at the Dawson Creek City Hall. Those hours are from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. until Friday. And more people on the Alberta side of the border have been told to be ready to leave within 30 minutes. The evacuation alert in the county of Grande Prairie has been expanded. The Cascatna River wildfire is just 5 kilometers from the BC-Alberta border, and it's expected to significantly grow in the next couple of days. And winds are pushing it in the direction of the county of Grande Prairie. The Fort Nelson First Nation has issued an evacuation alert for its Fontes Reserve. The reserve is southeast of Fort Nelson, where a trio of wildfires is burning near Sakani Old Growth Provincial Park. The nation says the area includes 1 inhabited home and many cultural sites. A fire burning near the Fort Nelson River has grown in size to 1,434 hectares. 2 other fires burning east of the provincial park are 118 and 27 hectares in size. All 3 are burning out of control and are thought to be caused by lightning. Meanwhile, the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality is maintaining an evacuation alert for an area along the Alaska Highway. The stretch of road has closed and reopened multiple times due to the Summit Lake wildfire. The highway was closed for much of the day Tuesday, reopening in the evening. The road west of Fort Nelson remains open today, but emergency officials do say that could change at any time. The 162-kilometer stretch of highway between Grouse Trail and Toad Mountain Road is down to single-lane alternating traffic. The BC Wildfire Service says, although maintaining access to the highway is a priority, the safety of crews and the public is the primary objective. The Wildfire Service adding, much of the fire is incredibly difficult and inaccessible terrain. Ground crews are prioritizing work in accessible areas, and helicopters are providing overhead support. The Summit Lake fire spans about 26 square kilometers and is one of 2 wildfire of note in the province. And a campfire ban coming into effect for Northeast BC this week. Category 1 open fires will be prohibited across the Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, and Fort Nelson fire zones effective Thursday at noon. The prohibition applies to all public and private lands unless otherwise specified. Burn barrels, tiki torches, and fireworks are just some of the activities covered by the ban. However, the prohibition does not include the use of outdoor stoves. Now, anyone found defying the open burning prohibition may be fined $1,150, and if convicted in court, fines of up to $100,000 and a year in jail could be imposed. Well, in other news tonight, we're getting our first look at BC's secure involuntary care facility that has triggered plenty of controversy both for and against. Several cabinet ministers touring Alouette homes in Maple Ridge, which had dorm-like rooms with common bathroom and kitchen facilities. The facility is to support those with overlapping issues with drug use, mental illness, and brain injuries. The first of their kind rooms are locked in a fenced property with medical and non-medical services available.
That includes a constellation of supports, including things like art therapy, music therapy, connection to individuals' culture.
Hospital is not a place where you want to be living, per se. It's not the right sort of facility. So this is a step in the right direction in terms of the environment being an upgrade.
There are 9 rooms available in each of the 2 houses, with the second opening coming in a few weeks. They're designed so patients can live there long-term if needed. And Premier David Eby is continuing his 10-day trade mission to Asia. The trip is designed to diversify and strengthen BC's economy amidst the ongoing tariff war with the United States. Eby spent day 3 of his Asia trip meeting with FPX Nickel, which invests in several BC mining companies. He also met with the government-owned Japan Bank for International Cooperation, which has investments in LNG Canada, including a liquefied natural gas export facility in Kitimat. Premier David Eby is continuing his 10-day trade mission to Asia. The trip is designed to diversify and strengthen BC's economy amidst the ongoing tariff war with the United States. Well, Eby spent day 3 of his Asia trip meeting with FPX Nickel, which invests in several BC mining companies. He also met with the government-owned Japan Bank for International Cooperation, which has investments in LNG Canada, including a liquefied natural gas export facility in Kitimat.
Taken stakes in projects in British Columbia, and they wanted to know about our plans for electrification, the North Coast transmission line, our support for the mining sector.
Eby says trade barriers being put up by the United States appear to have made officials overseas more eager to partner with BC. Next stop on the trip includes Malaysia and South Korea. Meantime, Eby says he will not be throwing his support behind a new oil pipeline in BC, despite suggestion from Ontario's premier that he might change his mind.
It's not my job to come in and tell Premier Smith that her vision for a North Coast pipeline is many, many years off, and there's no proponent at this point. My job is to ensure that British Columbians' interests are protected and promoted. And one of those ways that we're doing that is driving forward shovel-ready projects.
And before heading into a meeting between premiers and the Prime Minister this week, Doug Ford had said he was confident Eby and Marc would, quote, work things out regarding a second pipeline, unquote. In response, Eby says there's already the publicly owned TMX pipeline running through BC, and he also says the province does not support lifting a ban on oil tankers off BC's northern coast. BC Hydro is looking for industry partners to help meet the growing demand for energy in the province.
We are seeking demands across our conservation programs, new ideas, new proposals that must be market ready, that will allow individuals to save money and allow us to use our electricity system more efficiently and to use the power we save to power economic development elsewhere.
Launched 2 requests for expression of interest today. The first looks at projects that would help increase capacity and baseline energy, such as geothermal, pump storage, and hydroelectric resources. The second is looking for organizations with market-ready technology that can help conserve energy. Submissions close in September and will help guide future energy planning projects. The Bank of Canada is keeping its trend-setting interest rate steady at 2.75%. The central bank arrived at that decision primarily because of uncertainty over U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs and a softening Canadian economy. CTV's Michael Couture reports.
Canada's central banker Tiff Macklem says they're being less forward-looking than usual, and it's all because of the unpredictable trade war.
Uncertainty remains high.
With perhaps the understatement of the year, the governor of the Bank of Canada had that explanation for why interest rates are staying at 2.75%. Citing the doubling of the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, Tiff Macklem said the conflict is being felt in the economy.
It's difficult for businesses that are faced with new rules of the game every week. I'm much worried about households who are worrying about the possibility that they'll lose their job.
The economy hasn't softened, but the bank says it wasn't sharply weaker as the U.S. continued to import goods from Canada. But some economists say there is evidence of the impacts.
We are certainly starting to see interest rates bite For consumers, where we're seeing increases in the number of consumers unable to make their payments, skipping payments on credit cards and car loans.
The bank says the removal of the federal consumer carbon tax helped bring down inflation by 0.6 of a percentage point. However, economists say it's tough to predict if there will be another interest rate cut this year until the trade war stops.
If we're able to come to a trade agreement relatively quickly, then a lot of this could go away and the Canadian economy could do very well.
Macklem says they are considering the other scenario.
There could be a need for a further reduction in the interest rate if the tariffs continue, if that creates more weakness in the Canadian economy.
Now, the central bank's next rate decision and monetary policy announcement are scheduled for the end of July, and both decisions will be affected by whatever comes out of the White House. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
With Canada Post and its workers still at an impasse over contract negotiations, Canada's Minister of Jobs says she's asked both sides to return to the bargaining table along with federal mediators. In a statement today, Minister Patty Hajdu says it's time to negotiate terms for arbitration and for the union to table its response to Canada Post's last offer. The minister says arbitration isn't the preferred path for either side, but, quote, Canadians expect the parties to resolve this dispute one way or another, unquote. She adds, attempts to negotiate a settlement must continue and federal mediators are waiting to engage with both sides. The new Liberal government is set to face a confidence vote in the House of Commons tonight. The vote is on the throne speech. If a minority government loses, it could lead to a snap election. The NDP is saying it will not vote against the throne speech, so the Conservatives or Bloc Québécois will need to support it, but it's not clear how either party will vote. On Monday, opposition members successfully amended the reply to the speech to call on the government to table an economic update before Parliament breaks for the summer. Intense discussions are underway in Ottawa over how to respond to Donald Trump's doubling of steel and aluminum tariffs to 50%. It's a presidential proclamation that will create chaos in the supply chain, job losses, and negative economic fallout. CTV's Rachel Aiello, and with the pressure Canadian companies are facing and the calls for Ottawa to act.
Load and Phil LaPlante's family-owned steel roof and siding company has been selling into the U.S. for decades.
It's definitely scary.
But now, the nearly century-old employer of more than 300 Canadians is facing hard choices with a portion of its business being directly hit by Trump's 50% tariff on steel and aluminum.
We can't swallow a 50% increase, and the customers in the U.S. won't pay 50% more for the same product.
Breweries across the country are also feeling crushed by the rising cost of aluminum cans.
The things we use to make our product are just all kind of getting more expensive, and it's particularly acute for small independent breweries because, you know, our core product ends up in an aluminum can.
McJanet wants to see governments tap into all options for relief. So far, the federal government won't say if it'll retaliate.
We will make sure that we impose maximum pain to the U.S. while having minimum pain, minimum impact to Canadians.
This after the Prime Minister noted the counter tariffs already in place.
We've acted strong. Those are in place. We will take some time, not much, some time, because we are in intensive discussions right now with the Americans.
But Conservative and NDP leaders want Canada to hit the U.S. right back.
Deal or no deal, if it's coming soon, well, President Trump wouldn't do what he's doing.
He better be quick. Because industry and jobs are at stake right now.
The domestic steel industry employs around 23,000 Canadians, and the aluminum industry around 10,000, with both sectors indirectly supporting tens of thousands of additional jobs. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Well, some sad news to report tonight. Marc Garneau has died. His family says the former MP, cabinet minister, and Canadian astronaut faced his final days with the same strength, clarity, and grace that defined his life. He passed away peacefully, surrounded by family, and they want to express their heartfelt thanks for the outpouring of support and kind words over the past few days. They're especially grateful for the medical team, who they say provided dedicated and compassionate care during Garneau's short illness. They're asking for privacy as they grieve and take time to heal. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with weather.